Hello, learned and astonishingly attractive students. I am Stephen Ott. Welcome to this week's episode of Crash Course, not to be confused with a song about Tang with a very slow sway. By 600 CE, China was divided into several smaller states in what is known as the Era of Division, not to be confused with the Era of Warring States, until this guy named Wendy came around, not to be confused with the fast food chain restaurant. He married off one of his daughters to the leader of the Zhou Empire, and then he said, "I'm the captain now." And Wendy remained popular by sucking up to the nomads of the north, and also by establishing granaries to prevent famine in the future. Things were going pretty good for Wendy until his son Yangdi killed him Kylo Ren style.
Mr. Ott! Didn't that require a spoiler alert?
Thank you, astute student, for asking. That was not a spoiler because, one, I never mentioned what movie it was, and I did not mention who Kylo Ren's father was. Yangdi proved to be even more ambitious than his father and became opulent. He built a new capital at Luoyang and started forced labor on the Grand Canal linking North and South China. I think it's time for the open letter, but first, let's look in the secret compartment. An American flag sock. Why would you put that here, Anish? I think it's because we can thank the Chinese for our ability to celebrate the 4th of July. Because without the Chinese, we would not have gunpowder, hence would never have fireworks. And now, an open letter to Yangdi. Dear Yangdi, you got a problem. I don't want to say you're a terrible person, but you really were, okay? You killed your father. By the way, I'm curious, how did his funeral go? Did you go? Did you give a eulogy, send flowers, something? And then you killed your brother in the ensuing struggle for power. But if that was not enough that you had killed off your family, you then led an unsuccessful military campaign in Korea, which went very badly for you. On the home front, you cracked the whip on your own people by making them build the Grand Canal, and then by making them work on your capital. For instance, this one time, you wanted a game park, right? So instead of, moving your game park to a convenient place for it to be put, you decided you wanted one spot. So you had all the people in the city move a forest. You had them move a forest to clear room for your game park, and then build hills for it. Best wishes, Stephen Ott. Yangdi got killed Julius Caesar style, and one of his relatives, Li Yuan, took power, establishing what we now know as the Tang dynasty. Under Li Yuan and his son, the Tang established the largest land empire ever established in Chinese history. They rebuilt the bureaucracy and the examination system and enjoyed a status similar to that of the modern-day AP exam. Those that did well on it got a fancy title, cool clothes, and a bunch of other fun stuff, including exemption from corporal punishment. It should be noted that since the Era of Division, Buddhism had been slowly creeping into China, and that created a problem because Confucianism is very opposed to foreign ideology like Buddhism. Empress Wu, perhaps more than any other empress or emperor, promoted Buddhism almost to the point of state religion. The Confucian backlash was huge, and at one point Empress Wu Zong was persecuting the Buddhists, similar to how Nero persecuted the Christians. However, all good things can't last forever, and eventually Emperor Xuanzang, his second wife, died, okay? And then this wonderful girl named Yang Gufei comes along, and he even becomes infatuated with her, as our fancy textbook likes to say, and because she was young and talented. Now, there are words I like to use to describe Yang Gufei, but I can't say them. And she basically helped cause the collapse of the Tang dynasty, because eventually Xuanzang was so caught up with her that he forgot about this little thing called running the government. In the ensuing palace revolt, he was forced to execute her. While the Tang dynasty wound up putting down the revolt, it came at a heavy cost, and eventually the dynasty collapsed. It looked like China was on its way to another era division, but then Zhao Kuan-yin came along Aragorn style from Lord of the Rings, and he said, "A day may come when Chinese civilization falls, when we forsake our exam system, when all the bonds of Confucianism are broken. But today is not that day. That day would come about 1,000 years later during the Communist Revolution, but that's for another episode, not today. He subsequently established the Song dynasty. They did things a little differently than their predecessors, and the military was made lower than the bureaucrats so as to avoid another palace revolt like the one that had so weakened the Tang dynasty. This came at a heavy cost, however, because the Song never was able to reach the size or the power of the Tang dynasty or the Han dynasty or any of the other dynasties. And so they had to pay a lot of tributes to the nomads in the north that they never were able to conquer. This came back to bite them in the end because the Jurchens eventually came down and invaded most of China, reducing them to the southern Song dynasty, which is about half of the Song dynasty. People in APUS history probably know what I'm talking about when I say that the Song dynasty spoke with a high-pitched, squeaky voice and carried a very tiny twig. Wang Anshi saw the oncoming onslaught, and he tried to do his best to reform the military, education, the whole system, but it was too little too late, and China was invaded by the Jurchens, reducing them to the southern Song dynasty. Southern Song proved to have quite a bit of vitality, however, and were only conquered by the exception of world history, the Mongols. Ah! Thank you for watching Crash Course. Have an amazing day, you magnificent students.
Mr. Ott! Mr. Ott, Mr. Ott! Didn't that require a spoiler alert? Mr. Ott, Mr. Ott!
And Wang Anshi could shoot, do that backwards. That's for the blooper reel. Okay. Okay. However, the Southern Song dynasty actually proved to be pretty resilient, and they lasted until the Mongols took them down. The exception of world history. Exception.
Oh, shoot. Okay, say that part again.
Okay. All right. Thank you for watching. Have an amazing day, you magnificent students.